Alright, hello people, I'm the Dude, and this is my review slash rant of the TV series Misfits, the British TV series to be specific. It has not hit American shores that I know of, and considering we love to grab anything that gets any kind of fame at all and remake it, at the very least, I'm surprised it hasn't made it over here, because this is probably the funniest series that I've seen in, I want to say 5 years, 10 years, maybe more. Considering we get crap like Ray Romano and the 50 billionth Cosby Show imitation wannabe family show, I mean, we get so much garbage that's supposed to be comedy. It's disgusting. It's pathetic. It's ridiculous. And then one day I'm surfing the net, run into some post about the Misfits and how hilarious it is. I go watch it, and my God, are they 100% correct. The Misfits is the funniest thing I've seen in I don't know how long. That's just the bottom line. That will be the gist of this review. If you like funny, if you like to laugh your ass off, find the Misfits, the TV series, and at the very least watch the first 2 seasons. Because it's hilarious. The story, the plot, is that there's this storm, and the storm hits, and everyone that gets hit by lightning from the storm gets superpowers. And the main characters are these 5 teenagers. There's actually 6, but he dies pretty quickly. There's a lot of death and destruction in this series. People die a lot. People die left and right. There's nudity. There's a lot of sex. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of language. If any of that stuff bothers you, you want to move on to something else. But if you can deal with that, if you're an adult and you don't mind that kind of stuff, then this series is amazing. But anyways, the storm hits. Anyone who gets hit by lightning gets superpowers. The 5 main characters obviously all get superpowers. This isn't like Heroes. It's not like the X-Men. They're not blatantly powerful. It's just that they can do certain things, if that makes sense. Like one of them can go invisible, but he can't go invisible if you're looking at him. You know, they all have limitations. Like, he's not going to use it in a pinch to save himself. It doesn't work that way. He kind of has to plan ahead. And one of them is drop dead sexy to the opposite sex, but she can't turn it off and on. She can't just charm some guy and then turn it off and go about her day. Anyone who touches her is instantaneously infatuated with her, and that's all they can think about. So it's a double-edged sword. Most of them are like that. I think the only one that's not a double-edged sword is Nathan's power. And Nathan's power is kept hidden for a lot of the first season. He's constantly trying to figure out why he doesn't have one. Spoiler, he has a power. He just doesn't know what it is. Or at the very least, it takes him quite a while to figure out what it is. Let's put it that way. So, when he does, it's a really cool moment when he figures out his power. I'm not going to spoil it. I will be spoiling a lot of other stuff about the series, because I kind of have to. If I'm going to rant about the series, I have to talk about it. So yeah, there's your warning. But yeah, they all have powers, and tons of other people throughout the city. The storm hit the entire city, and anyone else who got hit also have powers, and most of the time those people are bad. There's a few of them throughout the series that don't want to harm anyone or don't want to abuse their powers or any of that, but for the most part, they're what you would call evil, and they're kind of the villains throughout the series. There's plenty of human villains too, just, you know, regular generic people that are out to get the 5 main characters for whatever reason. For one reason or another. Usually they deserve it. Like I said, there's a lot of murder in this series. Usually they're not just wholesale slaughtering people for no reason. Usually there's some reason, you know, that they were going to be found out, or, you know, the person meant them harm, or the person was trying to use their power against them, you know, a blackmail, that kind of thing. Usually they're in the right, killing the person. It's kind of funny saying that, but usually they have a reason at the very least. These other people, the bad guys, usually their reasons are purely selfish. They're just bad people. So, and their powers are usually hilarious. I'm going to go ahead and spoil one of the best powers. So if you don't want to know, just skip this part of the video, I guess. But one of the villains later on in the series, he has the power to control dairy products. That's his power. And everyone laughs at him because by that point, the city knows that there's people with powers. They understand at that point, and all these other people have really cool powers, and this guy can control milk and butter and stuff like that. But this guy uses it. He milks it, pun intended, for all it's worth. basically, if anyone eats any dairy products, he can kill you. He can just use his power to control the dairy products inside your body and kill you that way. And he does. He turns into one of the biggest villains in the series, which is just hilarious. Such a stupid power, something that is so ridiculous, is used so nefariously. Very cool. He's one of the best villains I've seen in quite a while, because he is outright evil. He is using his powers for his own gain and nothing else. And he's murdering people left and right. So yeah, he's definitely a bad guy. The main characters, I don't know, I mean, some people probably see them as bad guys, because like I said, they rack up quite a body count by the end of the 3rd season. They've killed quite a few people, or at least had a hand in the death of quite a few people. But like I said, usually they're in the right, so to speak. And later on, the storylines are really interesting. It's probably my second favorite part. Obviously the comedy is number one. Nathan, one of the characters, is just his persona, his screen presence, his improv, everything about him. He's just amazing. He is amazing. He is so funny. Every time he's on screen, he can't let it go. He has to say something that will make you laugh. Every single time. No matter how serious that moment is, it could be one of the big drama moments where, you know, they could be in danger, or they could be, you know, in the middle of trying to save someone, that kind of thing, but he's always going to throw something in to be hilarious, which is awesome. I love him for that. But yeah, the story arcs are my second favorite part of the series. There's always something going on. Every single character always has something going on in their life. And usually it's either risking their superpower, you know, for the first season, and I think well into the second one, they don't want people to know. They try to hide it. So usually their superpower is at some kind of risk of being let out, or it's interfering with their daily lives, or something that they've done in the past concerning their superpower, usually to do with killing someone or being involved in someone's death, comes back to haunt them. But there's always something going on with each character. And then there's always something going on with the overarching theme, you know, the team, the group. They're not really a team, the group of teenagers, you know, them together fighting against something. Whether it be someone else with powers, or the authorities, or just their probation worker. They're all criminals. They've all done some kind of crime and been sent to community service. That's how the series starts. That's how they meet. And basically they're just not good people for the most part. I mean, the two girls, they're basically portrayed as, there's no other way to say this, skanks, sluts, whatever you want to call it. That's their portrayal. Not that they do it in some kind of, you know, non-overt way, that they just have sex with people and that makes them skanks, and, you know, obviously. No, it's not like that. They're literally portrayed as sluts. They'll use their body and they'll basically sleep with just about anyone, and they both dress with you know, their cleavage showing every single time. Massive amounts of cleavage. But yeah, it's just their character. And let's see, there's an athlete who is by far the worst character out of the main five. His name's Curtis. His character is just kind of a wet blanket. He doesn't really bring anything to any of the scenes usually, and his story arc is usually him whining about how he used to be famous. He used to be this athlete who's going places, and he got arrested for drug possession, and throughout the whole first season, it's just him bitching and whining about how he'll never be famous again, you know, he'll never run again, and all this garbage. He brings so little to the series. So yeah, the best thing about him is, again, another spoiler, if you don't want to hear it, you know, stop watching the video, obviously. Later on in the series, I think somewhere in the second season, he actually turns into a woman. His entire physique, his entire body changes into a woman, and you kind of have this kind of quasi-bi thing going where he's kind of embracing the being a woman thing more than a man probably should. So that gets really interesting whenever you get to that. But for the first, like, at least the first season, he is the worst character. And then into the second season, when they start doing more with his character, it gets better. Nathan is awesome, like I said. Every time he's on screen, he's being hilarious. I don't even think he can help it, honestly. This guy was probably born funny. But, yeah, he's awesome. He's my favorite character by far. And then, Barry, otherwise known as Simon. Simon's his real name, but Nathan keeps making up names for him, and one of the ones he likes to call him is Barry. He keeps calling him Barry, like he doesn't know what his name is, even though it's been 2 seasons now. But anyways, Simon's character he's the outsider, he's the outcast, he's the one that no one really wants to talk to, no one wants to spend time with. You know, he's on the outside, even though he's a part of the group, because of what they've done together, what they've been through. He's the one that no one really wants to be around. And later on in the season, later on in the series, in the second season, that completely changes. He actually turns into the main character of the series, which is really awkward. He gets the least screen time in the first season, and then he turns into the main character. He's the only one that actually wants to use his powers to just go around helping people. He wants to be an actual hero. He actually makes his own costume, and he wants to go around saving people, you know, that kind of thing. And no one else wants that. Everyone else in the group, they either want to use their power for their own gain, or they don't want their power to be known at all. They just want to hide from it. But no, he wants to go around and act like Superman, basically. Well, not Superman, but you get the idea. He wants to be the good guy. And by the time that point hits, by the time he steps out of his shell, so to speak, he has become the star of the show. His little story arc invades into everyone else's. His story arc becomes the main story arc of the series. So it's really cool to see him get more screen time when at the start he was nobody. He was just kind of there in the background for the most part. No one really cared about him. If anything, he was part of the comic relief, because Nathan was always picking on him and making fun of him and stuff like that. Making jokes at his expense. That kind of thing. But yeah, later on in the series, you'll get even more interesting villains. There's this one villain that's not really... He's like a quasi-villain, I guess. He's paid to get to the 5. I keep calling them the 5 because they don't really have another name. They're not an actual team. But anyways, the 5 main characters, he gets them to give up their powers. He kind of plays on their fears, I guess, and he gets them to give up their powers. They become regular again, normal people. They realize that there's so many people running around with powers by that point that they feel left out, you know, and at the very least they can't protect themselves anymore because they don't have powers. They're the sheep now. They're the cannon fodder, so to speak. So they go back to this guy individually and they all get new powers. So the series kind of reboots at that point. The original powers, which are invisibility, telepathy, the sex power, the sexual drive, or whatever, the physical attraction power. One of them can reverse time, but he can't choose when he does it. It just happens at random. And then Nathan's power, like I said, I'm not going to give up Nathan's power because it's pretty hilarious the build up to when he finally figures out what it is. But anyways, those are the original powers, and those are really cool powers, for the most part. I mean, you could see yourself having those powers and having a blast. You know, I mean, reading people's minds, going invisible, being dead sexy to the opposite sex. They literally cannot control themselves. So yeah, stuff like that. Then they get rid of their powers, and it's like they get second-hand powers. It's like they get these powers that no one else wanted. So it's really interesting to see them go from 5 of the best powers around to 5 of the worst. Their powers are just complete crap at that point. And the series kind of takes a different tone. The early series had a lot of drama. There was a lot of them being in danger, or someone they know being in danger, or them being in danger of being found out, that kind of thing. But once everything goes public, the drama kind of takes a back seat, and it's more about them just, their relationships and you know, interacting with each other and that kind of thing. At the very least, until it kind of changes. It slows down for a while, I guess is the way I'd put it. But it's still a good series, especially since Nathan is still there. The rant part of this review/rant of Misfits starts with, why the hell did they get rid of Nathan? I mean, he was by far the best part of this series. Don't get me wrong, I like most of the other actors. Like I said, I don't really like Curtis, at the very least in the first season. But Nathan was really the soul of this series. And at the end of the second season, they got rid of him for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't have a choice. Maybe he went on to do other things. I tried to look it up and see if there's any information on it, and I couldn't find any. as to why he left, or why they get rid of him. They replace him with another guy who's trying his damnedest to fill his shoes, trying to be the same type of character, be funny, that kind of thing, and sometimes he somewhat succeeds to be funny, but he's just not Nathan. You know, Nathan could not help but be hilarious. I mean, seriously, that guy was comedy gold. So yeah, I don't know why they get rid of him. So the problem that I have with the series, the biggest problem, is that after the first 2 seasons, when they get rid of Nathan, no one really steps up to fill his shoes. You know, I mean, the new guy, he's trying, but he's just not that funny. And no one else really tries to fill in, you know, add to the comedy, if that makes sense. It's just the new guy who's trying to be Nathan, and he's just not. So the comedy aspect really falls off in the 3rd season. And I think they realize that because they try to go more towards the drama, more towards, you know, the teen drama type crap. And it doesn't work as well. I mean, there was drama in the first 2 seasons, and the only reason it worked is because it was counterbalanced with all the really great comedy. In the 3rd season, it just doesn't work as well. It just doesn't. Plus, you're also getting rid of an established character. In my opinion, the main character of the series. Obviously, there's 5 main characters, but I think Nathan gets the most screen time by far. But just getting rid of him alone was bad. But getting rid of you're basically your best comedian at the same time was just kind of a death sentence. The 3rd season has been out for quite a while, and I haven't heard anything about a 4th one. So maybe that killed the series. I don't know. It's possible. Because the 3rd series, I wouldn't. There's 3rd season. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just nowhere near as good. It's not even close. Even the story arcs are less entertaining. Because it's less campy. It's less about having fun, and it's more about, like I said, the teen drama type crap. And that wasn't what this series was about, honestly. I mean, that was just kind of one little part of it. And trying to carry the entire series with that is just, I don't know, it didn't work for me at all. It just didn't work at all. In fact, the only thing I liked about the last season, the last half of the last season was Simon. Simon was still doing his whole, you know, secret identity power trip type thing where he goes from being a nobody to the star of the show. You know, he's got this mission, and he knows what he has to do, but he's struggling with how he's going to get it done and all this stuff. Try not to spoil that as much as I can. I'm being very vague. But yeah, this show is, I don't know how to put it. I mean, it's raunchy at times. There's a lot of gore, a lot of death, a lot of really terrible people. I mean, most of the people, the minute they get powers, they just use them as horribly as humanly possible. You know, just to get everything they can out of their powers for themselves. And you know, it's not a happy picture. If anything, this is what would actually happen if people got superpowers. They're not going to instantly put on capes and go around saving people and pretending to be good guys. No, they're going to use these powers in the worst ways possible. They're going to be complete dicks to everyone they meet. And yeah, I mean, it's closer to home. It's closer to what would actually happen. It's closer to what reality would be if we had superpowers. So yeah, I like it for that. I don't want this PG-13 happy holding hands crap, you know, running around in a leotard and in a cape and all this garbage, saving people, you know. I mean, that wouldn't happen. Literally the only one in the entire series that ever thinks to do that is Simon, and that's only because of his character, the way he's this outcast. He wants approval. You know, he wants people to look at him and see something great. That's the only reason he goes that direction. No one else even conceives of it. Whenever it's brought up, they all laugh at him. They think it's ridiculous. Using their powers to go help other people. So yeah. First 2 seasons, amazing. If you like laughing your ass off, seriously, watch the first 2 seasons. Find the first 2 seasons of Misfits and watch the hell out of them. I've watched the first 2 seasons probably 5 times. That's how good they are. Not all at once. You know, I watched them, left, did other things, time went on, watched them again, that kind of thing, but they're hilarious. The 3rd season, not so much. The 3rd season was kind of an experiment, a failed experiment in my opinion. Especially getting rid of Nathan. But yeah, at the very least, the first 2 seasons are comedy gold, and they're good on their own merits too. Like I said, the story arcs are interesting. How they interact with each other, how their relationships change, what happens to them, how they deal with what's happening to them, stuff like that. So yeah, go watch Misfits. That's the gist of this review. Go watch Misfits. You'll thank me for it. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time.